Hello and welcome to this special episode of Biz Talk on the third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation. I'm Guanxin in Beijing. The third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation has brought together representatives from over 130 countries. Over the past decade, how has the Belt and Road Initiative evolved to boost connectivity and infrastructure across continents? And looking ahead, how can this initiative contribute to equal, open, and mutually beneficial global governance? Join us in our Beijing studio. We have Wang Huiyao, founder and president of Beijing-based think tank Center for China and Globalization, China's leading think tank, and he was a former counselor at China State Council. And Victor Gao Zhikai, chair professor at Suzhou University, a prominent expert on economic policies. And join us via Zoom, we have Chris Devonshire Ellis, chairman of Dezan Shira and associates and publisher of Silk Road Briefing. Chris is joining us from Malta. Welcome to our show. And also, this very episode of Biz Talk is co-produced with the TV BRICS International Media Network of Russia. And my co-host Vasily Kuchushev joins us from Moscow. Hello, Vasily. Warm greetings to you and the entire TV BRICS team. I can see the wonderful setup in your Moscow studio. It is a great pleasure to be working together across continents for this show. Over to you now. Please introduce us to your guests and give us a preview of the conversations coming up from Moscow.
Hello, Beijing. We send our regards from Moscow, and definitely this is a great opportunity to have co-production on this very important topic of Belt and Road Initiative. Please allow me to introduce myself and our experts. I am Vasily Kuchushev, host of TV BRICS International Media Network. We welcome Dmitry Berichevsky, director of the Department of Economic Cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, to join us in the studio. And also we have Vitaly Mankevich, president of the Russian-Asian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs. Thank you very much for joining us. Colleagues, the Grand Forum for the Belt and Road takes place in Beijing, and we would appreciate to know the view of the guests from Beijing studio about the event.
Well, thanks, Vasily, for the introduction. With the perspectives shared by esteemed experts from both sides, I'm confident we'll have a thought-provoking and constructive dialogue. So, Henry, let me start with you. So, given the vital role of this forum in advancing Belt and Road cooperation, what expectations do you have for how its outcomes might catalyze and reinvigorate multilateralism to further boost BRI development?
I think that the world enter a huge, unprecedented challenges, and of course also there could be enormous opportunities as well. So the global economy actually need a big booster. And then you look back for the last decade, and you look at for the next decade. I think if you count what are the available stimulus or big things that can glue everybody together, Belt and Road is probably the most available and most ready and most matured global scheme, that global public goods that China has been initiating and providing and working with different countries together. So I think for that perspective, global multilateralism, globalization needs a strong boost because of the economic slowdown, because of deglobalization, and of course also trade wars, tariffs, and sanctions, decoupling, de-risk. We're seeing all those things happening. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we have something common course, that infrastructure is the big denominator for the world and for all the countries to work together, and China has contribute to that.
Indeed, we should build on the past success and move forward. And Victor, I'd like to have your take on this.
Thank you very much for having me. How time flies. Now we are already celebrating the 10th anniversary of the BRI, and the launch of BRI seemed to be just yesterday. So time does fly. Now, I think one significance of this BRI summit is to really thoroughly look back for the past 10 years, achievements, shortcomings, any improvements, but also equally importantly, if not more importantly, looking forward into the future, the next 10 years. BRI for the past 10 years has been proven to be the right approach. As Henry said, it is international public good. Every country participating in this initiative can benefit. And this is truly a good occasion for China to share with the rest of the world one philosophy that we firmly believe in. That is, to become rich, build a road. That's the origin of the Belt and Road Initiative. We need to build roads, connectivity projects of all kinds, linking one nation with another, one part of the world with another, one continent with another. And BRI is not politicized, it is not based on ideology, it is basically based on one simple truth, that greater connectivity will generate greater productivity and efficiency, enriching the livelihood of everyone involved. So, while we celebrate the 10th anniversary of BRI, I think it is time for the whole world to muster enough courage to embrace BRI.
And Chris, let me take this to you. What possibilities excite you the most to further accelerate BRI development?
3,000 cooperation projects are underway or have been completed, 200 bilateral documents, and close to $1 trillion of money has been spent on this. So what's next? Great question. Well, China has shown over the last decade, I think, a lot of well-planned infrastructure developments, and I think that this is, as has earlier been said, exactly the right way to go ahead. In terms of what's coming down the pipeline, I think that we're going to see the development of digital sovereign currencies. China, Russia, and several other countries are already at the last planning stages of introducing this to be available. It's predicted by sometime early 2025. But other currencies will also move towards having digital versions of their sovereign currencies issued by their respective central banks, and this will help grease the cogs of international trade. New economic transfer systems to not compete with, but perhaps be alternatives and exist alongside SWIFT. These are being developed and will be introduced. So basically, the changes, I think, will fundamentally alter the way in which we conduct business on a global basis, changing the way we do that. I think it will also increase person-to-person connectivity. And as was mentioned earlier, the Belt and Road is really taking the format of being a global village in terms of uniting these economies and countries. And again, I stress, 152 countries out of 195 are part of this. And that's very much a majority. And I think this is where the developments are going to be made. Interconnectivity on a global basis amongst BRI members.
So Harry, let me reflect on the 10 years development of the BRI. What about it make it truly transformative?
Well, I think this is a gradual process actually for the last decade, because when BRI was initially proposed in 2013, it was first as a concept and then gradually materialized and gradually institutionalized, formalized, and a set of policies expanded from a few dozen countries to 150 countries. So that actually really become a global phenomena of connectivity. I think one of the words probably we can describe BRI in a big way is this connectivity. Yeah. And the world is getting so small, becoming smaller and smaller because of connectivity. And then we are not only expanded on the infrastructure, but we also expanded on the digital Silk Road, green Silk Road, and of course also on the people-to-people exchanges, and all those things has made an enormous contribution to the Belt and Road Initiative. So now it really truly become a global public goods, and I hope that really now we can have more countries join this in a more substantial way, and also we hope that we can attract more international agencies like World Bank and the AIIB and ADB, FDB, all those development banks to participate. And also, of course, I think when we have this Belt and Road alliance of some kind, a Belt and Road cooperative corporations, mechanism of some kind. This will, after this third summit, it will go to next phase of a much better and more connected and more multilateral approach. So that is really what I see.
Victor, what do you think are the most important achievements of BRI development in the past 10 years?
Many people started up 10 years ago to look at BRI as to whether it will take off whether it will stumble, whether it will be a huge success.
A lot of questions on it.
A lot of questions, uncertainties. Now, I think 10 years later, everyone knows about BRI. Everyone knows BRI is happening, is shaping the world, is boosting connectivity. And connectivity is not just highways and railways and airports. Connectivity also includes financial connectivity of all kinds and digital connectivity. So it encompasses all spheres and every part of the world, making sure that the world is one single world. This is the very convincing argument for BRI, because most of the people in the world do not want to choose between another country versus another country, for example. They want to embrace peace, promote stability, improve the living standards of the people, and BRI is an enabler. It is an accelerator. And once you participate in BRI, once you build a road, for example, build a financial connectivity, digital connectivity, your people will have greater confidence in you. Just like people in Indonesia support more enthusiastically the Indonesian president because he has been promoting the completion of the high-speed railway from Jakarta to Bandung. And I think people in Indonesia want to further expand the high-speed railway in multiple directions, from the current site to the west, current site to the east, etc. This is a sure sign that participating in BRI will win more confidence from the people.
And Chris, let me take this to you. What is your observation of the progress being made by the BRI in terms of boosting connectivity and promoting economic cooperation and trade flows?
It seems that as was mentioned earlier, the hard infrastructure that has already been put into place and continues to be put in place. The last speaker mentioned the new high-speed rail in Indonesia, but there's other railways being proposed. And I think one of the interesting things that China has done is really with the BRI, it's thrown a large pebble into the sea, into a calm lake, and those ripples have spread out so that other countries are now taking on the infrastructure, economic and infrastructure burden. These other countries and regions have now been somewhat, I think, inspired by China's lead in infrastructure development, trade development, digital connectivity, so on and so forth, to take this the next stage forward. And I think that with the development and involvement of some significant economies there, Saudi Arabia, for example, Russia itself, and others, Indonesia, that the BRI is going to continue to spread on a global basis. But without doubt, I think what China has started is a globally encompassing project. It's got to be for the benefit of humanity. Connectivity, communications are always important. Roads to preserving peace and the goodwill. And I think that the BRI is developing very well along that path. That BRI mantle is being taken up by other countries now, and I think that that is a significant multilateral development that will help the whole concept expand beyond the BRI and into a truly global network of interconnectivity.
We've covered a lot of ground in our discussion so far. I'm sure, Vasily, you have some questions for the experts we have with us here in the Beijing studio. Please go right ahead.
Yes, I have a question. How confident are you that the cooperation between China and its Belt and Road Initiative partners can become even more constructive contributors to global development and global governance?
Yes, as I said, the world now becomes so fragmented, and we are getting into the multipolar world. And then if in the multipolar world, what is the biggest glue can really glue everybody together? What is the biggest attraction that everybody was a biggest denominator of all the common different interests? And then we find that this connectivity, this how to make our world a better place, in a global village era. And then you find this, there's a public goods available, that is Belt and Road. And then we are really quite surprised to see that the BRICS country has expanded so fast. For example, this year the BRICS summit has doubled the BRICS countries from 5 to 11 now, and 6 new countries joined it, and there's another 20, 30 countries in the waiting line. And I think one of the traction for that is really look at the potential, this growth of the developing country of the global south, which China's Belt and Road has played a huge role there. So we want to improve Belt and Road Initiative, enhance that, and improve that, and engage more countries to work on that. And this is really to strengthen the new era multilateralism in the multipolar world.
So, Victor, do you think that Belt and Road cooperation will contribute to global development and global governance?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, the world today that we are living in is a multipolar world. No one should indulge in the fantasy that it is still a unipolar world. That's number one. Now, in a multipolar world, with multilateralism being very much promoted, I hope, connectivity will kick in to play a bigger role. Now, with greater connectivity, with greater exchanges of people, goods, services, ideas across national boundary, the world will be safer, I truly believe. And no one should ever deny the fact that the world is increasingly smaller because of greater connectivity. And we need to learn to respect each other more because we are more interconnected. Therefore, if anyone says he or she does not want to have globalization, they probably live in a parallel universe. The globalization is the megatrend. Whether you like it or not, it will continue. It will be elevated to globalization 2.0, 3.0, etc., multiplied and promoted by greater connectivity, promoted by the BRI.
And Chris, I'd like to have your take on this.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways that this is going to manifest itself. I'd like to talk about one of the controversial issues about or so-called controversial issues about the Belt and Road to illustrate this. One is the accusations of countries entering a debt trap with China. Now, both the Johns Hopkins University of the United States and Chatham House, both independent and well-esteemed organizations, have debunked that this is taking place. Nonetheless, it is true that some countries, due to COVID issues and mismanagement perhaps at their government level, have incurred debt problems in paying back some of the loans. However, despite the rhetoric occasionally put out in the West, when you look at the whole picture of how much money has been spent, $1 trillion, the amount of defaults or failure to pay back loans on time has actually been at acceptable international banking standard levels. So there isn't really a crisis of countries not being able to pay back these loans. It has, with the BRICS, the New Development Bank, very much involved in green finance, incidentally. And of course, Beijing is the largest, but not only shareholder in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, which has been extremely well received on a global basis, and I think has over 107 different countries as members, including many in the European Union and the UK. So I think that China's role in taking this forward into the global community as a global financier is also very, very interesting. And it's in Beijing's interest to be seen to be fair, and it is being fair. There has been criticism, but I think that's been unfounded. So China's role as a global financier, I think, is perhaps an underappreciated factor of its investment into, or its involvement into the Belt and Road.
Great question, Vasily. Also, we know Russia is one of the partners in the Belt and Road Initiative, and we would like to hear from guests in your studio, and please take it over.
Thank you. And yes, indeed, Russia and China have achieved significant progress in bilateral economic and trade cooperation, and I'm sure our guests can tell us more about it.
Dear experts, good afternoon. Let's begin our discussion, and the first question for the both experts, Mr. Dmitry Anatolievich and Mr. Vitaly Vikentyevich. Experts from Beijing have already shared their views on the development of the One Belt, One Road initiative. What's your assessment of current trends in the world economy? What's the role of the Greater Eurasian Partnership in this process?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invitation. Well, it is no secret that the current state of the world economy is quite dismal. In principle, both the One Belt, One Road initiative and Russia's Greater Eurasian Partnership initiative are essentially a response to worrying trends in the global economy. In fact, there are recessionary phenomena which can't help but be troubling and which are a consequence of the model Some call it neoliberalism, some call it globalization, which is basically beginning to wear itself out. And in this sense, this is a comprehensive response in the form of infrastructure projects, in the form of unifying trends, increasing trade ties, and connectedness in general. These are the Belt and Road Initiative and the Greater Eurasian Partnership. They allow linking various centers in the Greater Eurasian continent and beyond. Of course, it is important to detach, to move away from just this political moment, to build up pragmatic, mutually beneficial economic cooperation on an equal basis. And here is the flagship initiative of the GEP, the Greater Eurasian Partnership, proposed by President Putin in 2015, which is aimed at just that. And as far as the EAEU, the Eurasian Economic Union, and the development of its ties with interested partners is concerned, this is already the beginning of the realization of the inception of this great journey.
Vitaly, you have the floor.
We, as practitioners, we believe the main site of growth right now is our Asian partners. We see great prospects in the pairing of the Eurasian Economic Union and Chairman Xi's One Belt, One Road initiative. We believe that we need to interact more, look for new areas of growth. I think it's very important for us, of course, to develop small and medium-sized businesses. Of course, they are not the same in all countries. In Russia, they are not the same as in China. But nevertheless, I believe that we need to interact precisely at the average level, good, proper, medium-sized business. It is important for us now to look at our Asian partners and develop our cooperation together. All the more so because in Asia, we are welcome, we are respected, we are valued, and I think it's very promising for us right now.
Thank you, Vitaly, and we continue our conversation. The leaders of China and Russia emphasized the importance of this cooperation based on the One Belt, One Road initiative. Could you tell us what achievements Russia has made in the first decade of the One Belt, One Road initiative?
We think, probably, that these 10 years were like a warm-up in global terms, because Chairman Xi's One Belt, One Road initiative is looking centuries ahead. Now, we need to rebuild our logistics routes, including a fast route from Dongguan to the dry port of Vorsino. We have more initiatives in various oil and gas projects, including Yamal LNG. Here are both cultural cooperation and cooperation in tourism. In fact, now, after the pandemic, our tourism cooperation, tourist travel, is just gaining momentum. And this is also a very big opportunity to replenish the budget of all countries that are on the road, not just China or Russia.
Thank you, Vitaly. And my next question is for you, Dmitry. The 5 members of the Eurasian Economic Union are also partners of the One Belt, One Road initiative. What new opportunities do you think will open up for pairing with the Russian Greater Eurasian Partnership initiative?
You see, Vasily, the idea of forming the GEP was initially aimed at connecting various regional platforms, including regional international organizations. This is the EAEU as a center of attraction. This is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and of course, ASEAN. And I will emphasize that the GEP is not only open to the countries of the continent. It's an open structure in general, not even a structure, but let's just say it's a philosophy of some sort, right? If our partners, our friends in Latin America and Africa, share the principles of equality, mutual benefit, voluntarism, the principle of consensus, then generally, everyone can easily join this initiative. And the Eurasian Economic Union has the appropriate tools, opportunities, and works with those who are interested in this. There are so much forms of dialogue partnerships. There are preferential and non-preferential agreements. There is even observer status. And whoever finds it convenient can work with the Eurasian Union in such a way that it is favorable to both parties. GEP, like the Road Initiative, is not limited to the economy. It's cultural and ethical, civilizational, very, very broad. And the fact that it doesn't call for action against anyone, the fact that it doesn't aim to hold back others, that is its fundamental difference. And that's its great potential. Our common future lies behind such an approach.
Thank you. China is the main trading partner of the Eurasian Economic Union, and China's position in trade with the Union has significantly strengthened. The trade turnover between China and the Eurasian Economic Union reached $200 billion in 2022, up 30% from the previous year. And how do you assess the cooperation between China and Russia in recent years in this regard? If I may, your opinion, Vitaly?
The possibilities are enormous. Cooperation is underestimated now, and I think that we can very significantly increase trade. I think that in the next year or two, we can reach $300 billion in dollar equivalent. For some reason, we always count in dollars. Although we keep saying that we should switch to settlements in national currencies. And we are switching. Now, according to my observation, there is very great interest from the Chinese side in investing in the Russian Federation. Chinese partners occupy 90% of the slots at the Russian exhibitions that are taking place now, which means that this is a colossal interest on the part of China. Those American and European companies that are leaving the Russian market and Russia itself, their places are taken by Chinese companies or joint ventures.
And can we expect bilateral trade between Russia and China to reach record levels in the coming years?
We have a new record every year. Every year is a record. Each time we increase our trade more and more. We can, we should, and we all do work for it.
Before we continue our conversation, I suggest you watch an excerpt from the documentary film dedicated to the Great Tea Route from China to Siberia by TV BRICS partners from Tumen, a historical tour in our video.
While in the empire's capital they were brewing coffee following the European fashion, samovars were already smoking in full swing along the Siberian route. But not everyone could afford tea, not herbal tea, but Chinese tea. 1 pound, 400 grams of medium quality cost 5 rubles, like a cow for a peasant household. Tea was counterfeited both in Russia and in China. There were more than 10 ways of tampering, and how much the empire's merchants and resellers, clerks and bukharans were able to earn on it for 3 centuries. Perhaps it will remain a mystery of history, and we shall learn about the long journey of tea. Where the trains run today, in the 16th and 19th centuries, the Great Tea Road ran through the area, forever changing the life of provinces and provincial cities. The caravan route from China to Russia operated for about 300 years. Along the route, roads and cities were built, new industries and professions were created, trade grew stronger, and culture changed. And the long journey of tea began here, in the province of Hubei, where the main volume of raw material for supplies to Russia was grown. The most avid tea drinkers in the Russian Empire were Muscovites. They consumed about 60% of the tea imported into the country. In the mid-19th century, there were more than 100 special stores and more than 300 establishments serving ready-made tea. It was believed that only mediocre product was left in Tumen.
When carrying tea on the 6,000 bus journey, it somehow would start to vanish. It began to settle at local markets and fairs, with local merchants and simply with daredevil people. Therefore, tea was present, and it was being consumed. There were a good one, and there were all kinds of tea.
Chinese fragrant tea is becoming cheaper and more accessible to the masses. Sea lanes and railroads have increased the speed and quality of transportation, and shipping costs have decreased. But that was the end of the caravan trade. Horse-drawn transport of goods along the Siberian route completely stopped in 1908.
And we continue, and now a question for both of our experts. Recently, the issue of building truly open and inclusive payment systems has become acute. In this context, settlements in national currencies are in demand.
The key question here, of course, is on what basis to build mutual settlements, because a national financial messaging system is in fact a very serious part of national sovereignty. And every country is eager to have others join them. So a compromise has to be made here. The BRICS, as we know, have discussed this topic quite thoroughly and at length at both the summit and the ministerial meetings. There is an understanding that it is necessary to strive for this, to build a payment system that would be independent of the corresponding systems formed in the West. Yes, the path is not easy and is quite long. But the very fact that work and real settlements as national currencies have already begun suggests that nothing is impossible. We are not yet talking about a single currency, yes, but about some kind of unit of account so that we are not tied to the dollar, not tied to the euro. This is already being talked about in earnest, and there are already ideas to put into practice.
And why don't we, in the Asia-Pacific region, build that kind of trade? Maybe right now, today, in yuan. Maybe give the lead to China in this area. After all, China has done a lot for this, for the development of its financial institutions, for this project. Yes, of course, we would very much like our MIR system to work on all continents. Yes, we really want the ruble to be strong. I think right now, today, you have to be realistic. We need to quickly start trading in yuan now, and perhaps build relationships around the yuan. And then, maybe, we could make some common currency on this foundation. Maybe the BRICS Bank would become active here, or our own financial institutions.
Vitaly, thank you very much. Dmitry, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I literally just have a couple of words I want to comment on. Indeed, the yuan is, for our business community and companies, a kind of magical wand that allows them to buy goods and services in third countries, among other things, because the currency converts quite well and is used in different regions of the world. But we are talking about the fact that the Greater Eurasian Partnership is about what? It is about equality and multipolarity. So to be pegged to the yuan, just as we were once pegged to the dollar or the euro, I think that in the long run it is not the way to go. For a certain time, indeed, the yuan will allow us to get out of difficult situations. But the leaders spoke precisely about the formation of such independent, neutral payment systems that would allow us to pair with our Brazilian colleagues, South African colleagues, and other new BRICS members that have emerged as of this year.
We join our colleagues from Beijing studio. It's obvious the Russia-China cooperation is promising and full of impact. Do you have any questions for our guests?
Yes, Vasily, I think I'm very interested in green development and some cutting-edge cooperation in digital and financial cooperation. My question is, can we expect intensified cooperation between Belt and Road partners in implementing the climate agenda? And what are some possible areas for collaboration in the digital economy and local currency transactions?
Dmitry, please go ahead.
Well, the green agenda, the climate agenda, is such a constant that runs through all issues of sustainable socioeconomic development and business contexts. Many of our companies are committed to what is known as the ESG agenda, and we generally understand that this is an important matter. It is an issue on a global scale. If we don't reduce greenhouse gas emissions, at some point, temperatures will rise so high that our planet may become uninhabitable. We need to promote elements of green finance. We need to look at the carbon footprint of the production of certain products. And most importantly, we need comparable systems of accounting, regulation, and mutual recognition. We are already doing this work with the People's Republic of China, and we would like to introduce this work to other partners, such as India, such as Middle Eastern countries. There are no contradictions here.
Vitaly, the floor is yours.
New technologies are now being developed that minimize carbon emissions. It's clear that our technology is improving. On the other hand, we all realize that we need to create something, to develop productive industries. And here, nuclear power is indispensable. We are building safe nuclear power plants everywhere. We have global cooperation. I believe that in this green agenda, our Rosatom is the pathfinder. Nuclear power and our gas.
Okay, Vasily, thanks for those insightful perspectives shared by the esteemed guests in your Moscow studio. Well, Henry, I think you mentioned this a bit earlier. The world today indeed faces a lot of uncertainties and challenges. Multilateralism is facing a lot of challenges, and we're also seeing rising protectionism and also rising debt level due to the slow economic recovery. How should BRI respond to these challenges?
The world after, let's say after the Bretton Woods system, the first generation of globalization, has come to a style and maybe more slowing down, and then we need the second generation of globalization. I think that is really, we need a multilateralized, multipolar world, and then we need what's the system to support that. So from unipolar world to a multipolar world, we need a system to support that, and then Belt and Road system is really a new innovative system, and it has grasped the key, absolute crucial part of what is lacking in the world is the connecting all the countries through the infrastructure, which is most difficult, most challenging part to do. The globalization now, the second generation globalization 2.0, really need something commonly be recognized. I think BRI had shifted that.
So, Victor, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think about the evolving global economic environment? And can BRI find some new solutions, innovative solutions to promote openness and shared prosperity?
I hope in the coming 10 years, BRI will become a greener BRI. A BRI attached importance to environmental protection from the very beginning, but in the coming 10 years, it should emphasize more on green development, make the whole BRI projects green. The second thing is BRI need to be multiplied in the sense that we are not just looking at road or bridge or airport or seaports, highway, railway, etc. These are important connectivity projects. But we also need to look at, as I mentioned, financial connectivity, digital connectivity, technological connectivity, standards being pushed to all the participating countries. Now, in that way, we will know BRI will become an accelerator and an enabler. It will really play a chemistry kind of a role to promote development in multiple ways. Now, the other thing is that BRI should focus on promoting peace. Why? Because once you build roads and connectivity projects, once people in different parts of the world can communicate with each other more and understand each other more, I think it will reduce the risks of confrontation, conflicts, Cold War. Therefore, I think we need to rally everyone behind the BRI to make sure that BRI is a great success. Henry mentioned many other alternatives. I always believe connectivity projects should not be pitched against each other. They should be connected with each other. And the more connectivity projects there are, the better, because eventually the roads should be just roads rather than political roads or ideological roads. There should not be the fashion in the world of today. Let's promote connectivity projects as they are opposed to as what other people want to distort them to become.
And that is the essence of public good. And Chris, let me take this to you. What do you think about the future of BRI to adapt to the changing needs of the world today?
Well, I think China is also adapting the global needs of the world. China has been, interestingly, very active in promoting free trade agreements and related agreements, tariff reductions, at a time when, as you mentioned, the United States and Europe have become more protectionist. They've been involved in ripped up the EU-China trade agreement. The United States has been involved with sanctions and tariffs. So I think that China really has been active in making trade, making business, making connectivity far easier. It's somewhat ironic, given the background, that it is China that is now leading the way to global trade rather than the West. There's a little irony there. But nonetheless, I think this is a course that China has rightly set, and I'm looking forward to the development of this over the coming years. I think it's a very bright future ahead, and it's really China at the core of that, but also motivating and other countries and regions to get involved. Very, very encouraging.
And we continue our conversation. I remind you that in studio we have Director of the Department of Economic Cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation and President of the Russian Asian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs.
Dmitry, how can Russia and China combine the development plans of the Eurasian Economic Union with China's One Belt, One Road initiative to further develop bilateral relations?
Well, we see how the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative is progressing. And there are other features of it, like the Silk Road, the Maritime Silk Road. But the Eurasian Union is also developing. The terms of trade are becoming easier. There are easements that allow for more active movement of goods, services, and labor. That is, the freedoms that are necessary for the full development of business and the removal of barriers. Our Russian initiative of the Greater Eurasian Partnership envisages the establishment of such a continental integration loop. We are in constant contact with our Chinese friends, and we are thinking about how to link this affair, how to organize this project so that we do not interfere with each other. It's not like we're competing with Belt and Road. So we all have to somehow intertwine these efforts here to show that here is a global majority that does not depend on any political agenda. We are pragmatic. We aim to each develop our own country, and at the same time, develop all together.
Last year and this year were in many ways a turning point for the world and international diplomacy, as demonstrated in particular by the outcome of the G20 summit held in New Delhi in September. Next year, Brazil assumes the presidency of the G20. It will then pass the seat to the Republic of South Africa. Thus, the BRICS countries will be governing trio in the G20. In this context, what significance do relations between the BRICS partners take on?
Our countries, the BRICS countries, have shown that they can act in coordination with each other, and the G20 has shown that it can overcome contradictions. And in the passing of the baton from one BRICS country to another, Brazil, I'm sure there will be continuity. We have a great rapport with our Brazilian colleagues, and it sets a tone for the whole international agenda in general.
Dmitry, thank you very much. It's not by chance that we have touched the BRICS line. Online with our studio is Fabio Borges, a lecturer at the Federal University of Latin American Integration, located at the city of Foz do Iguaçu in Brazil, creator of the BRICS track at the Coordinating Council for Asian Affairs of the Federal University of the State of Pernambuco, director of the Latin American Institute of Economy, Society and Politics of the Federal University of Latin American Integration, coordinator of the research group Decolonizing International Relations and the Observatory Extension Project for BRICS and South-South relations. Brazil is not a participant in the One Belt One Road project today, but the country is following the initiative closely. Fabio, you have the floor.
Today, I would like to talk about the One Belt, One Road initiative, which plays an important role in the existing system of international relations, as well as the challenges and transformations it may face. One Belt, One Road is a Chinese mega project that emerged in 2013. The initiative will build more than 3,000 new facilities in 150 countries. It is expected that by 2049, its value will exceed $1 trillion. Such projects have never happened before in the world history. It is huge in terms of investment, scope, and the number of countries involved. Therefore, it is necessary to talk about it in more detail. China in the 20th century focused on building what is known as South-South cooperation. This is the cooperation of post-colonial countries that criticize the policy of colonialism, racism. These developing countries plan to pursue a multi-vector foreign policy in order to be heard in international organizations. Therefore, since the 50s, many countries in Latin America, Africa and Asia have sought to build relations with countries in the South. China is determined to build a relationship in which both sides win. China is also promoting the idea of full engagement, which is not only trade relations, but also investment in the development of other areas, such as infrastructure, education, science, and others. Returning to the issue of One Belt, One Road, which appeared in 2013, we can note that this project of China is developing very successfully. The creators of the initiative did not even need to create any international ad hoc body for its implementation. China prefers to build bilateral relations, signing memorandums of understanding individually with each of the 150 countries. This is necessary in order to find common interests and understand in which areas this cooperation will be mutually beneficial. First and foremost, in the construction of infrastructure. It is hard to imagine a country that would refuse to build a profitable facility. It seems to me that infrastructure is the backbone that brings many countries together. Most are in favor of building and investing in such projects. At the same time, it is obvious that in implementing such projects, China has its own national interests. For the past 30 years, China has been the fastest-growing economy in the world. This can be seen in the structural changes that have taken place in the trade relations of many countries for which China has become a major trading partner. China has become the creative workshop of the world of the 21st century. Many countries have very close trade relations with this country, as well as many investment projects. In this respect, One Belt, One Road replicates the fate of the 13th century Great Silk Road. Even then, China had already established trade routes with European countries, and Europe and Eurasia had important trade channels with China, called the Great Silk Road. China has been a world leader in terms of technological and economic development and demographic growth for more than a millennia. Therefore, the new idea of the Chinese leadership to repeat the success should not surprise anyone. Before the Industrial Revolution of the late 19th century, China was ahead of many other regions of the world.
Thank you to our expert from Brazil, and after the Brazilian topic discussion, we return to our experts. How do you assess the prospects for countries such as Brazil, with which Russia is also actively cooperating within the BRICS framework to join One Belt, One Road initiative?
To whoever wishes to join, whoever shares those philosophical, abstract but very important attitudes that preserve our world, our traditions, the principles of mutual respect and multipolarity. Of course, welcome. But this requires that we start with something small, right? The EAU, EAU+, Belt and Road, other regional initiatives. We need to see where they intertwine, where they overlap, how we can move forward more effectively. And then we should involve partners from other regions who may also have their own bright ideas that will help us, and our experience will help them.
And the Belt and Road Initiative, I will add, unifies the destinies of humanity, what Xi said. That is, it's so global that it has to attract other nations on other continents.
On this beautiful note, Dmitry, Vitaly, thank you very much for the interesting conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for our experts, and I give the floor to our colleagues from Beijing.
Okay, Vasily, thanks for those insightful perspectives shared by the esteemed guests in your Moscow studio. And Harry, you mentioned this a little bit earlier. The expansion of BRICS are expected to provide fresh impetus to the Belt and Road development, because these countries have been important partners in BRI development. So in your opinion, how will the future of BRI align with BRICS expansion and further contribute to South-South cooperation?
Yes. So I think, the BRI could be a champion for the Global South cooperation. I think the attractiveness of BRICS is really surprised everybody. It was such a big double-size expansion that just happened this year, caught everybody by surprise. And then there's another 30 countries on the pipeline wants to join. So I think a lot of BRICS countries, and 80% of the Global South is really looking at China as a good example of how to lift the poverty, build a common prosperity, and building infrastructure connectivity. So I think in that sense, multilateral system is in the making for this multipolar world, and then we are just in that process, and let's improve it, and let's enhance it, and let's really get more prosperity working together, rather than we are divided into different security alliances or different geopolitical alliances. Let's have more economic alliance.
Indeed, at least we're seeing more and more developing countries are working together through the BRICS mechanism. So, Victor, what is your opinion on this? How will the BRI development in the future create more synergy with BRICS development?
Well, first of all, BRICS, as Henry mentioned, now has 11 members. I expect eventually it will increase to about 50 members. And my dream is that countries like Turkey should join, Mexico should join, Indonesia, Malaysia should eventually join, Pakistan, etc. These bigger economies in the world eventually should be allowed to join BRICS. Now, all BRICS countries are participating countries of the BRI, but BRI is much larger in terms of the number of countries than BRICS members. Therefore, the relations need to be handled properly. I personally hope even countries like the United States or Japan eventually will give up their misgivings and mistrust of BRI and have the courage and vision to join BRI. Because the more the better, the more the merrier. And the more countries joining BRI, the easier will we be doing the heavy lifting. All the participating countries will benefit, BRICS members, they are hands and gloves to each other. They should complement each other, promote each other, and eventually the common goal is very simple, very straightforward, the common prosperity for mankind as a whole.
And I really like your vision that all countries should be on board if eventually the mankind has a shared destiny. And Chris, let me take this to you. Do you think the BRI development will create more opportunities for developing countries?
For sure. I'd like to just touch also on the BRICS. I know colleagues have said quite a lot about that, but one of the benefits of the BRICS is indeed that precisely they haven't had to spend years and years in making very detailed tariff adjustments to fit each other's economies, political considerations, business situations. So I think what we're seeing with BRICS is not just a potpourri of different countries, but actually a strategically developed alignment of countries that are in their own right the lead partner within their own free trade agreement. So I think that that's really interesting. In terms of the infrastructure development, I think it's significant that China, Russia, and the other BRICS and BRI countries are investing and completing infrastructure, whereas other countries in the West are apparently getting cold feet about it. Their economies are perhaps not doing so well, and some of these projects are being put on the back burner. I think in Asia and Eurasia, the economies are generally developing faster than expected, and this means that more money and more thought processes are being put into building the infrastructure that's required. And this, again, is not just the roads and airports and railways, but also the digital infrastructure and financial infrastructure that we need to take this forward.
So Henry, my last question to you is, what role can BRI play in drive collective solutions to our shared challenges of the world today?
We have actually achieved, I think, first stage of the success. So in the next decade, you will see the whole Southeast Asia super connected by the speed rail and fast rail. And that will greatly enhance the exchanges, people to people, goods and capital, everything. So this is really, we are hoping, another decade of success for BRI and for the world to prosper and benefit.
So Victor, in your opinion, what will the next decade of BRI bring?
Well, I think in the coming 10 years, the world will know more about what China is. Now, China is a country that if it discovers a recipe for success, it wants to share it with everyone involved. China transformed itself over a matter of 43 years by building infrastructure, connectivity, in order to enable itself to develop faster. China wants to share this with all the countries in the world. This is not political. This is not ideological. This is not bloc politics, for example. This is plain truth as far as China is concerned. Therefore, in the coming 10 years, I hope more and more countries, even including the United States, politicians in Washington will realize this is the true crux of the matter as far as the BRI is concerned. It is a fact. It is a truth. Everyone should participate in. And if you build connectivity, let's connect with your connectivity projects too. And in this way, I hope mankind will be in a better position to eliminate poverty, to promote inclusive development, and to make sure that the world we live in will be a better world for our children and future generations.
And Chris, let me take this to you. What's your opinion on the future of BRI? What will it bring for the next decade?
Well, I think that the BRI has really posed a global question which will be answered within the next decade, and that is that China, with 152 members of the Belt and Road Initiative, has been seen to become inclusive, whereas the West has become exclusive. So the next decade is going to determine which of those policies is correct. If exclusive, then regional blocs will develop. If not, then we'll have global interconnectivity. So I think that on a global basis, how that pans out, we're at a crossroads now as to where we go. China is pushing, along with many other countries, in one direction, multipolar. Certain other countries are pushing in another towards exclusivity. So the answer to the question is really another question. Which of those two policies will prevail?
Thank you. And that concludes our special edition discussing the Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation. Throughout our broadcast, we heard from distinguished experts from both sides about the progress made under the BRI over the past decade, as well as the exciting opportunities ahead. In the last 10 years, it has already transformed connectivity, infrastructure, and trade flows for partner countries. But there is still tremendous potential to leverage the BRI framework for win-win cooperation. With the spurring adoption of emerging technologies, supporting the global south, or shaping a more inclusive world order, it's clear this initiative has an important role to play. And we'd like to thank our guests in the studio again, Wang Huiyao, founder and president of Center for China and Globalization, Victor Gao, chair professor at Suzhou University, and Chris Devonshire, analyst, chairman of Deza Shira and Associates, and publisher of Silk Road Briefing. Our special thanks also to Vasily and the wonderful TV BRICS team in Moscow for making this co-production possible. And with that, we wrap up this edition of BizTalk. I'm Guan Xing in Beijing. Thank you for watching. See you next time.